Kuntres Umaayan, page 245, the kitzer in the bottom of the page. Hageus hishtus. The Rebbe in this past paragraph explained that gaiva, geus, is conceit, is foolishness. Haskola v'avona b'limet HaTorah, when one comprehends, understands and comprehends Torah, study of Torah, ha'koyach b'avodas Hashem, and the koyach that one gets to serve Hashem, whom ite yisbarich, is from God Himself. And this is why man was created. So, if so, what are you bragging with? It doesn't equal. It's not logical. You could kind of brag, show off with something that you weren't made for, and you created it, and you acquired it, and then you speak about it. You say, even there, it's not proper, but at least I can understand the logical way of getting to speaking that way and feeling that way. But if this is why we were here created, it's nonsensical to even think that I'm so great because I'm doing you a favor. My friend, you're not doing me a favor. You wouldn't be here otherwise. That's what it says in Pirkei Avos. Lokach notzarta. And nevertheless, this type of person, including the Ben Torah, as the Rebbe said, holds himself great, machzik toiv la'atzmoi. Nikar, it's recognizable, he has not yet reached the ultimate reason why it was created. With all his learning and all his davening and all his knowledge, the ikar is missing. And the Rebbe said also towards the end that someone who has gaiva also causes a chilul shem shemayim, which is terrible. Let's continue. Pedig base. Top of 247. Yeah. Yes.
So do you think that a lot of people that are brilliant in Torah, I mean, you mentioned a lot of people brilliant in Torah, but not necessarily it didn't pay all the dividends necessarily as to being, mensch. That's what the Rebbe is saying, the gaiva aspect. Like, you can learn all the Torah, you can do all the mitzvahs and everything, but if you still have gaiva, you're not going to fulfill the potential.
Absolutely. He's speaking to he's speaking to everyone, but he does highlight the B'nai Torah as we discussed yesterday. Yes, the answer is yes to your point. Okay. Good morning, Hillel. Let's learn page 247, Pedig Beis. V'hinei zehu ha'hefresh bein shtusei hagaivo. This is now the difference between the foolishness of having gaiva, shtusei hachazokas atev la'atzmoi, the shtus of feeling good about yourself. Shtusei ha'itzdakkus. This means the shtus, the foolishness of justification. Right? All of these different types of foolishness the Rebbe spoke about in the last few chapters. So now he's kind of, delineating every single one. So he says, if you put those three types of shtusim on one scale, and you compare them with shtusei aveira, to the shtus of doing an actual aveira, okay? A sin. Although the first three, they are not. They don't have the same content as doing a hardcore sin. A hardcore sin is an aveira. Gaiva, it's a disgusting midah, and maybe the result is even worse and all of that, but bottom line, you haven't done an aveira. If you ask, have you violated one of the 613 commandments without pirushim, without interpretations, the answer is no. Now, of course, there are commentators that say that are included in this mitzvah and that mitzvah, and I'm not discounting that. But the Rebbe is making this comparison. If you put the two on a scale and you weigh justification, considering yourself great, and hardcore gaiva on one side of the scale, Yoni, compared to the other side of the scale, which is hardcore averas, not putting on tefillin and eating treif, etc., etc., seemingly there's no comparison. This is an aveda. What does the word aveda mean? You've desecrated, you've severed, you've passed over the domain of holiness to the domain of klipa, of no good. But let's see what he says. Shehem bekami surim chamurim. When you talk about averos, sins, you're talking about hard, stringent, strict isurim, prohibitions. The whole zeh, nevertheless, those three, chamurim harbe yoser, they're even worse. You hear that? Bezeh shehem goyrmim hezekos yoser gedolim mishtusi aveda. On Moshe, on the chart of the checks, check, XX. On that chart, on that what we call the legalistic chart, a hardcore avera is the big X. A gaiva here, a justification here, it's a small X, a question mark. But when it comes to, look what he says here, the damage caused, goyrmim hazekis yoser gedolim, it causes greater damage to individual mishtusi aveda. And you know why? The aveda, and we've all gone through this. An aveda is a one-time thing. You didn't aveda. You wake up, you say, "What did I do? I'm so stupid. I'm so foolish. I have to do tshuva." And you do tshuva, you wipe it away. Okay? This is ma'asim b'chol yom. But justification, you can't wipe away easily because you think you're always right. So that's why he said, and that's why he pointed out, Yaakov, the B'nai Torah, because the more you're a Ben Torah in a way, the more you come up with legalistic arguments. I mean, you know, I sit and write and research all day, and this is what my mind is full of. Everyone's coming up with justifications for their positions. You know, I'll give you just one small example, and I'm not going to go into it because it's for a future book, but just in 1980, two Rabbonim in the New York area decided to make an organization that opposed the Agudas HaRabbonim, which was led by Reb Moshe Feinstein, the president, and Reb Simcha Elberg, the acting secretary and, activist. And I'm now involved in digging to find out what really was going on here. I mean, how can, to me, it's initially, how can one go against Reb Moshe Feinstein? The man, besides that he was the Pesach Ador, he was such a humble person, such a tzaddik. His personality, he was, one second, he was so humble. Who did he bother? Who did he start up with? Okay, you didn't like his Piskei Dinim, right? Some didn't like the Satmar Rav and Rab Mordechai Savitsky. Savitsky, there were Rabbonim that had a big issue with some of his Piskei Dinim. And I'm going to discuss that too in the book, in Mitzvah Shem. But I'm just saying, and you go and make an opposing, and I don't want to say right now who the people that started the organization, but one of them was like his best friend, or seemingly his best friend. And what's the answer? The answer is justifying something that you think is right, and maybe it is, maybe it isn't, but that's how you can come to do all kinds of things. So please don't take what I'm saying that someone did Navera. I'm not saying that. You're entitled to open up another organization. It's a free world. You understand? But all I'm saying is that this whole idea of hitztatkus creeps in to the best of the best. Hillel, it's your turn.
I just wanted to say that reminded me of a story that I once heard from one of the Satmar Rebbes, the earlier Saget or something like that, told his son that he remembered being in the Midbar in a previous Gilgal during the rebellion of Korah.
And he told his son said, so Nuhu, what'd you do? Who'd you follow? Moshe Rabbeinu or Korach? He said, I stayed neutral. And the son said, you stayed neutral? How could you stay neutral? Moshe Rabbeinu, the leader of the Jewish people. And the father answered him. He says, if you can ask that question, then you don't understand who Korach was.
Okay.
A powerful story.
Yeah, very powerful. And I could see the Satmar Rebbe. I don't know about the Sigeter, but the Satmar Rebbe was very sharp and he was very witty, you know. But anyway, let's go back to what we're learning here, Yoni, is the whole idea. So, of course, you did an Aveda. Oy vey. Calm down. Do tshuva. Get it out of your system. And that's it. But justification and gaiva, it grinds you, it goes on you, and you wake up. I always say over the story, which you've heard many times from me, because it's life. That you know the Kotzker Rebbe is laying on his deathbed, and he says, "What are they going to say about me after I die?" I mean, what do you need more than that? The man is dying. He's the Kotzker Rebbe. He's a tzaddik, but he's honest, and he says, "What am I thinking about? What they're going to say about Menachem Mendel of Kotzk after he passes away?" Do you understand? So Gaiva creeps very deep into the psyche. You know, I don't know if Freud did a study on the issue of Gaiva as it is in the subconscious, but if it didn't, it would be a very interesting type of thing to look at. What that element of Gaiva is. So what the Rebbe is saying here, and this is not the only place, you can find this in other Sforim as well, is that the damage, Gormim Hazekos Yoser Gedolim. Let's continue. The Gemara says in Saita, the only reason why one does a sin is because the spirit of folly enters. The shtus halazu, he become a fanim. This silliness and foolishness in many ways. Shainim u'mishunim. Shainim means Moshe different. U'mishunim means strange. Yonason, different and strange. Okay? Lefi teva b'nei Adam, based on man's nature. You know, every person has their quirk. No two people are alike. So you can't say the shtus has to be exactly this way. When you study human nature, you study psychology, you know, these type of topics, it always amazes me how you thought you saw every kind of stupidity, and then you find a new one. You say, wow, how is it possible that there's even a new one? And the answer is, it's never ending. Because everyone has their little twist, that little mark that's unique to them. The Rebbe says, when you do an Aveira because of a shtus, you do it because you did the Aveira. And you know, this is the Aveira that I did. You know clearly what it is. You identify with it. In Yiddish, weist as hat getan das was mentor nit. He knows that he did what he was not supposed to do. Und das verdrießt Verdrießt means, and this bothers him. The negia zu, this negia, this thing that touches him, it bothers him. Mashadab negia loy, have it nu the tshuva. You hear that, Chevra? That itself is a tnu of tshuva, that it should bother you. You haven't yet done tshuva. But the fact that you say to yourself, why did I do this? How did I do this? You know, that's already the beginning of tshuva. Like I just said, even though it's not yet true tshuva, nevertheless, you regret what you did in the past, and through the arousal of Hashem from heaven, who has mercy on us. Or a time of auspicious time, Rosh Hashanah, so there are times when the Eibishter has mercy on us, and he says, I'm going to give you a whammy of the Sederus, of get up, wake up, it's Chodesh Elul, come on, you know. So the Eibishter has mercy on us. Right? Mash'en Kain.
So that would be in the level in the Tanya that the Tanya calls a Rasha V'Tovlo.
That's right. That's correct. Very good. Very good. We got some thinking students of Chassidus. Yes. Mash'en Kain. And if I asked you, Hillel, what chapter in Tanya is that? Would you be able to tell me?
I think it's 11, right?
Wow. Wow, wow, wow. Boy, do we have here. You're right. Okay.
Well, that's because that's where Baruch and I are holding in the Chassidus Megawera.
It's all right.
I can't do that from any other place.
That's all right. That's all right. Let's go further. Great. Mash'en Kain, conversely, on the other hand, conversely, b'shtusa hitztatkus, when it comes to the stupidity of justification, not only doesn't he agree to his transgression and sin, more so, he blames others. We've been saying this all along, Yaakov. It's my community. How you doing, Yaakov's son? I see you, my friend. I met him in Borough Park. How are you? Or his friend. What do you want from me? It's not me who is the troublemaker. I got a group of friends, and they make me, and they schlep me into the shtus. Or, I grew up in a little farm town somewhere, and there was hilly-billies. What do you want? I didn't come from a yeshiva environment in a big community. Was willst du von mir? As we say in Yiddish, was willst du von mein Leben? Right, Yoni, you heard that expression? Was willst du von mein Leben? What do you want of my life? It's a Yiddish expression. How do you
I heard it all the time.
Yeah. I have to keep the Brooklyn within you going. How
You know what they said? You could take the chutzlaretz out of the person, but you can't take chutzlaretz out, right?
Right. Hare, back to the text. Leizu bilvad masha einay gam mahare binyan tshuva. So not only does his justification not allow him to think about doing tshuva yoinisim, he's doing something worse. He's blaming his community and his friends. So not only will he get out of the rut, but his justification is schlepping in others into his stupidity. Because this very fact that he chose such an environment and such friends, it is his fault. Therefore, the Rebbe Rashab says, I argue, he says, that the stupidity of justification is worse than the justification, than the shtus of a hardcore Aveira. A hardcore Aveira is your own thing, you know what you did, and zehu. It's limited, it's contained. But the justification argument and position goes in many different directions to the point where you actually allow others to, you start blaming others. So the Rebbe says, we've spoken now about the shtus of justification. He says, let's go to the one that's a little above it. In other words, a little worse. A little worse is, I feel good about myself. It's even worse. Next page, top of 249. Splitting hairs here. The justification argument only applies to the cause for his folly. But he recognizes the act itself is wrong and needs tikkun. It's only that he justifies himself. The fact that it's not good is not because of myself, like by someone who does an aveda. You know why I did it? Because of my friend. He knows that what was done is not a good thing. He just says, I'm blaming my friends, my community. And he knows that the thing that wasn't good needs tikkun. But the second type of gaiva, which is feeling good, he comes to the conclusion with, I'm good in whatever I do. I didn't do anything. In justification, he knows something bad was done, but it's not my fault. The second position, which is worse in character, is that he says, what do you want? I'm great. But not only does he feel that he doesn't need correction, I'm great. In other words, I'm a great guy. What do you want? I'm a great guy. There can't be any better than me. So, and I'm telling, and we all know that these type of thoughts and arguments we see with different types of people and ourselves at different times. And it continues. Number 3. What's even higher, it means even worse as far as character is concerned. So here, you see the third one, Yaakov, he touches into someone who brags with his Torah of Avodah. So it seems like 1 and 2 is not about your learning and your davening. 1 and 2 is about character issues, justification, I'm the best, But number 3, in other words, number 2, Hillel, why am I the best? Because I'm God's gift to humanity. Whether I'm learned or not learned, you know who I am. I'm Albert Einstein. The third thing is, how much Torah. So maybe Yoni, what you asked me before, this is specific to the third, the person who concludes how much Torah I've learned, how Geschmack I daven, how great I shuckle, how much kugel I ate on Shabbos, and said L'Shem Kiddush HaShabbos. Right? The Hamachzik Tevel Yatzbay who Mashalo Higila Takos Amiti says the Rebbe, someone who holds himself thinking he's the best guy, hasn't come to the ultimate understanding of why he was created. He thinks that he was created for this world, for himself. He doesn't understand he was created to serve Hashem, which is the idea of bittul, subservience to Hashem. Now maybe here's going to answer Yaakov's question. Yaakov asked a good question. Why does it say that Gaiva touches and makes a blemish in the first 2 letters of the Tetragrammaton, the name of Yud Kei Vav Kei? The Shem Hashem. The Shem Hashem. The Goyrim Ro, he doesn't say, I'm sorry. The Goyrim Ro li atzmai la'abed kishenoisa v'chushe nafshoy. This idea of making a blemish in the Yud Kei causes a deep blemish, and it causes him to lose his talents and who he is. And sometimes you see people, everyone, talents. And there are times you see some has talents and the talents are not used. Or, maybe it has to do with this idea. I don't know. In other words, the Rebbe, when certain rabbis and people wanted to make aliyah, and they were rabbis and leaders in communities in the United States or Canada, wherever, Chutz La'aretz. So the Rebbe Bechlal wasn't a big pro Aliyah man, just like Rabbi Soloveitchik wasn't. But I'm not talking about that. But he said to them, so where are you going to settle? Yerushalayim, Ira Kodesh, Kaisel. The Rebbe says, if you want to last in Eretz Yisrael, go to Tel Aviv or go to a Moshav, and go out in a kibbutz and be a rabbi there. There you'll make a difference. Yerushalayim, they don't need you. They have a dime a dozen. And I spent quite a bit of time, the last time I was there to saw, you guys remember, some of you visited me in Rechavia and Shari Chesed, okay? So I was in the heart of the lion. And Yonason used to live there in Nachlaot. and I could tell you that it's saturated with Gemara and Chassidus, whatever you want. Okay, I found a niche that, Baruch Hashem, I had a crowd, but I'm just saying, it's not as though people are coming, they need a shul. What do you mean the shul? You want Rabbi Beryl Wine shul if you want English, and if you want history. You want Breslov, there's a Breslov shtibel. You want Chabad, there's Chabad. I mean, come on, there's the Beis HaKnesses HaGodel if you want a great chazan. To make a dent in Yerushalayim is an avodah kosher, a difficult avodah. And frankly, I'm not going to go into this, but I believe that many Israeli Rabbanim understand that. They understand it very well, and that's why they park themselves outside of Yerushalayim, because they wouldn't be able to accomplish the same thing in Yerushalayim, because they're the new man on the totem pole, and there's 100 years plus of Yidentum, of Jewishness and scholarship, and Yerushalmis. Boy, are they scholars, and boy, are they witty, and boy, are they going to give it to you if you make yourself. You make a mistake, you're going to hear it. Because with these guys, and I know these guys, I spent a lot of time in Nachlaot, in Bati Rand, and I spoke a lot to these people. And I know them from America too. These guys are sharp, really sharp. You can't pull anything over them, okay? So here comes an American rabbi from Indiana, or Chicago, or New York, and tries to make a difference in Yerushalayim. Says the Lubavitcher Rebbe, you're going to strike out. You're going to ready, you're making aliyah, you want to be a rabbi. Find yourself a locale where they need you. Now, why do I say that? Because the Rebbe says here an interesting word that I didn't see before. He says the blemish, Yaakov, and the Yud-K causes one to lose their kishrei, their talents. That's a very, very heavy statement. I have a talent. God gave me a talent. And through my gaiva, because by the way, it's gaiva too. I'm going to Yerushalayim. They're going to come to me. Because, I had a congregation of 500 members in America. So everyone's going to come to me. Oh, really? And you start a shul, or you let know the signs they put up, Tzaddik Bola Ir. Right? Everyone comes flocking. And then he comes for the lecture and there's 20 people in the shul. The point is that gaiva ruins your talents, because then you get depressed and upset. And guess what? Many people return. They leave. Because they came with one cheshbon and they're very disappointed. Now again, if you come in English Shema and you want the Kedushas Eretz Yisrael, whether you get the job and be the big macher and all that or not makes no difference. That's a different story. You're coming for Kedusha. What's the difference? You know what I'm saying? But if you're just coming because you want an extension of your career in Yerushalayim, I heard this. I have a relative, he's always wishing me, you should be zoiche to be meifetz Torah in Eretz Yisrael. And we've spoken about it a little bit, and I could see, and he's actually an American boy, but he's, he was raised pretty much in Eretz Yisrael. He's today almost a 70-year-old man, and I could see the thinking is that if you can be meifetz Torah in Eretz Yisrael, you've made it. And that is not the Rebbe's approach, the Chabad approach, and the Baal Shem Tov's approach. If you're going to Eretz Yisrael because of Kedusha, it doesn't make a difference whether, of course, in other words, you need Parnasa, you want to teach, you want to inspire, that's wonderful. But you then park yourself in a locale that needs such people, not in a saturated area where you have hundreds of such people. So this is what this reminded me of. I don't know if it means anything else, but this is what it reminded me of. Let's continue. Dehine When a person's mind is broad and he extrapolates one from the other, comes along the folly, the foolish thought says to him, why do you have to exert so much your mind in the study of Torah? You got broad brains, you got a big mind, and whatever you learn is great, enough. Asher be'emes eine Cain, says the Rebbe, truthfully it's not this way. The Gemara says, if you didn't exert effort and you say, I understand and I found the answer, the Gemara says, al taimin, don't believe you. Ubilti avoda v'yagia, without effort and exertion. You cannot ultimately understand really the Torah in its pure understanding. We're not talking about emunah now, in understanding, unless you harva. Harva means you apply effort and diligence. Even if you have a broad mind, the column the hoven, and it's easy for you to understand. Nevertheless, you have to apply effort, and you won't become wise by itself. So he says, and if indeed you're right, you have great brain, you have a sharp head, and it's easy for you to grasp things. So the more you exert yourself in Torah, the more you'll understand. Conversely, if you only spend a little time on learning and harving, you won't. And I saw this in yeshiva. I saw guys who had their heads, it was so much faster than mine and many of others. But they knew less at the end. Why? Because they right away they opened the Gemara. They 1, 2, 3. The question is how often they open the Gemara. Right? Because they chop it right away. They get it right away. They don't exert themselves. The says the Rebbe, all of this type of thinking is because of the folly, and one blesses himself in his heart and justifies and says, all I need is a little time, and with a little effort, I will come to the same conclusion. This is a very, very important point, because there's a lot of people out there like this. Why do I have to spend time harving in Torah? And you should know the real B'nai Torah, the real Gedolei Torah, Yaakov, those that were even though they had great heads, but the Hasmada, they talk about Rav Shmuel Berenbaum of Mir, right, who I wrote about in my book Mir. I spoke to his Talmidim. He was a great masmid. A masmid b'Torah is a whole different level. So although he had a great head and all that, but that's not the ikar of that person. The ikar was his asmada. And that's what the Rebbe is saying here. That you have to harav and Torah, so then the good brain you have will produce so much more. Im kain, v'im kulu yikidvorov, loma yishkach, shehus bezman harba yibagia yoyse v'yoyse. And the Rebbe says, even if I accept your argument, that you don't need a lot of time to understand because you get it right away because you have a great mind. No, he says, so how much more would you know if you spent time learning? The Rebbe says this is really a mistake because the Gemara says, next page, 251, I want to conclude, please, the paragraph. The Rebbe says that the Gemara says, Yogaiti v'loy matzasi, lo yogaiti u'matzasi al taimen. So what do you mean? No, because compared to what you can understand, what you know now is nothing, even though you have a great brain, a great head. Oh boy. I'm telling you, the Rebbe Rashab took us for a ride here. It's so, if you learn his Maimorim, and you compare it to what we're learning, you say, is this the same Rebbe? Because his Maimorim are all Haskalah, deep Hasidic thoughts. And here he's like going into character and personality. So here he talks about now, on top of 251, someone who is impacted, the shtus is, he says, health. Because of health. Ukedoyme prati achushim. In other words, I can't exert myself too much. I gotta sleep 7-8 hours. I have a friend, when I call him, he says, I have to go to sleep. I say, why do you have to go to sleep now? Because the watch says I have to go to sleep. Are you tired? No, I'm not tired, but it's this. If you're not tired, you don't need to go to sleep. Learn, daven, read. There was a chassid, Reb Shoel Brook, he used to get up in the middle of the night. He would say it in a clean way, he would say, what did I get up for? To go to the bathroom? He was an old man. He went to have to go to the bathroom. I got up and he took a Chassam Sofer and he started learning Chassam Sofer. He continued learning the rest of the night. If he fell asleep, he fell asleep. But why would I get up just to go to the bathroom? Let me just finish the paragraph. Wow. He says, I have a difficulty straining my mind or my eyesight. Habotas Einayim. Shekolzer, says the Rebbe Sheker Muchlat. Now, we're not talking about someone who has an issue with the eyesight. You know, I have sleep apnea. Many times I could be at the computer or reading something and I just fall asleep like that. Or a problem with night driving. You know, there are physical issues with eyesight, right? We're talking about someone who doesn't have a condition, you know, and all of a sudden he says, I can't strain my mind, I can't look into the Sefer, you know. Again, if indeed he's having issues from the eyesight and the Sefer, so he either needs better glasses or he needs something else. We're not talking about that. The Rashab is not addressing that. He's talking about a condition that one convinces themselves of, I have a problem. I didn't sleep enough. I strained my eyes. You know, that type of argument. And he says it's a sheker muchlet. Very, very strong words. It's an absolute lie. He quotes the Gemara. You have a headache, Yaini? Yasik b'tayr. I'm sure you heard this in Chaim Berlin many times. Chosh b'chol gufay. If your body's all messed up and shaking and hurting, Yasik b'tayr. Gemara in Eruvin. We just finished Eruvin and Daf HaYomi. Shenemar l'chol psari marpe. All my flesh, marpe, will be healed. All this comes from the Ruach Shtus that leads him in a bad way until he does contrary to his understanding, in addition to being contrary to God's will. So you were created, you were created to exert effort in study of Torah and doing avodah. Instead of this, you find excuses, including health excuses. This is very unusual. You don't find this usually. You see this for them to identify health excuses. And again, you know, such a paragraph needs to be looked at carefully, okay? The Rashab is not telling you, you know, to abuse your body, chas v'sholom, okay? But at the same time, you know, sometimes we go a little overboard and we, in the name of health, so it's a balance. It's a true balance, you know. And those that try to argue, well, this guy smoked till he was 85 and he dropped that only at 90. So I can smoke till 90 and I'll die then. Why can't I enjoy the cigarette or drink alcohol? It doesn't work that way. What?
Shalom Pesayim Hashem.
Yeah, Shalom Pesayim Hashem. Chevra, what do you guys want to say? Anything?
Yeah, I wanted to say that I have sometimes quipped that if I have trouble sleeping, that my segula for is to open a sefer.
Huh?
Yeah, because then I'll go right to sleep.
Right. And the vart they say is if you're middle of the day, you're at your studio, Moshe, and the phone isn't ringing and you don't have a job, start learning, and all of a sudden the HR is going to send you a phone call. Moshe, I want to commission you for this job because he doesn't want you to learn. Okay, Chavra, have a great day. We'll see everyone tomorrow. Sei gesund.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.